Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Post Game Notes brought to you by Sticks in the Six and the Hockey Podcast Network. I'm the host of the Sticks in the Six podcast, Andrew Forbes, here to give you a little rundown on the Leafs' 4-3 win over the Edmonton Oilers in Edmonton. Hopefully, you don't mind the start time. Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers did not like the start time of the local time in Edmonton. They start 5 p.m. local time so that, well, according to them, so that Leaf fans could watch their team play at 7 p.m. Eastern. Um, Everyone loves to hate the Leafs. We know that on this podcast. So just another more complaints, as Draisaitl said. The league does anything for the Leafs. I don't know if I'd go that far, but we haven't had a Stanley Cup since 1967. So what are they really doing for the Leafs and their fans? But let's get right into it. The Leafs win 4-3. Joseph Woll stands on his head with 45 saves on 48 shots, gives up 3 goals. The Leafs got out to a big start in the first period. 3-0 was the score after 20 minutes. And then they kind of fell back into some routine play by the Leafs. They sat back, they played defense, lost Oliver Ekman-Larsson to a lower body injury. We'll update you on that as soon as we can on all of our socials. But it wasn't the ideal second half of the game, but by far the best period they've played all season long was the first 20 minutes. The Leafs went up 3-0 with goals from you had Matthew Knies, who returned to the lineup. You had Bobby McMahon and oh my God, I'm drawing a blank here at who scored the first goal. But regardless, they went up 3-0 to start the game, and it was a big lead. They need to get off hot. Probably why Edmonton wasn't too happy with the 5 p.m. start. William Nylander, how could I forget that? William Nylander scored his 30th of the season, first Leaf this season to reach that 30-goal mark. Also puts him right back in it with Draisaitl, who was held with only an assist this against the Leafs tonight. On top of that, McDavid was held to 0 goals, 0 assists in 20 minutes of ice time. So the Leafs find a way to get it done. Jake McCabe played a season high, career high with the Leafs, 30 minutes of ice time, most of which came against the McDavid-Draisaitl duo. And as we just noted, McCabe was able to be one of those guys who was able to shut them down for the night. And the Leafs seem to have the number when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers. They've been able to shut McDavid down over past years. There are times that he does make it happen, but obviously the goal scorers for them, Evan Bouchard. You had Evan Bouchard, you had Zach Hyman, and believe was it Corey Perry? Corey Perry scored the third goal, did he not? I know he was robbed late in the game, which we'll get to in just a second here. But yeah, Corey Perry scored with 11:30 into the third period. So it was certainly a good back and forth game. This makes me think more and more that there needs to be a Leafs Oilers Stanley Cup final at some point in the McDavid Matthews era, because this would be a hell of a series, 7-game series. In fact, I would imagine it would go 6 or 7 games at least. A lot of back and forth play, a lot of speed, a lot of talent. You got the booming shot of Evan Bouchard on the back end. You got Draisaitl, who just snipes like nobody else. And then you've got the highlight reels of McDavid. You got the highlight reels of Mitch Marner. You got the highlight reels of Austin Matthews. So this would be one hell of a 7-game series in an Stanley Cup final if it were to ever happen. That said, let's get deeper into the game here. Leafs win 4-3. 3 goals in the first period. As I mentioned, it was by far their best period of the season in that first 20 minutes. Joseph Woll looked strong. Noted by Kevin Bieksa on Sportsnet as well that he looked poised. He looked like his movements were controlled. He could see the puck well. Even when Perry got into it late in the period in the crease, he just held his own and remained controlled and poised. Right. Matthew Knies, obviously back in the lineup, he provided a boost with a goal and an assist, picked up right where he left off. This guy is going to be a great power forward in the league at some point, already with career highs in goals and points. John Tavares was also back in the lineup, and while he didn't jump onto the score sheet tonight, he did provide some more depth up the middle, which is something that the Leafs have been talking about. Obviously, the rumor mill's going. You got at the Athletics top 10 center targets for the Leafs at the trade deadline. But when you have Tavares in the lineup, he does offer that depth up the middle as well. Bobby McMahon scored in front of his family, obviously an Alberta boy, had his family in the crowd as well. He picked up the third goal on the power play, which was a big goal for the Leafs, knowing now that they only won by the one. So for him to add that, he's had a strong season as well. Worth noting too, any of those card collectors out there, I picked up 2 Bobby McMahon young guns before the season started. That value is going up on the undrafted Maple Leaf as well. Beyond that, some of the things I took away from this game were Morgan Rielly did pick up an assist. I know the conversation this season has been Morgan Rielly, his offense has just disappeared. There was somebody recently who noted that there is life outside of the game, and obviously new dad. I'm not going to speculate how that affects his on ice play. That said, having had two kids in the last 4.5 years, I can understand that it would affect your everyday life. But that being said, there was a conversation between Craig Berube and Morgan Rielly earlier on this week, and the conversation was that Morgan Rielly needs to step away from worrying about the mistakes and focus more on just providing offense and playing his game. This is a guy who could easily put up 65 to 70 points. This is a guy who's done that in the past in his career, and yet he seems like he's having an off year. Now, there's been trade rumors, people talking about whether it's time to move on from Morgan Rielly. I don't think that it's time to move on from Morgan Rielly. I am highly critical of Morgan Rielly in the sense that when he shoots the puck in the offensive zone, there are a number of times where this guy will hit the shin pads right in front of him. It's frustrating to watch. That said, this is a guy who also provides a lot of offense. He has pride in playing for this team. He took a discounted contract in this last contract. He's somebody that wants to be there. He's been there from the lows all the way up to the Matthews era, the Marner era, where now he's seeing some success. And I think he wants to see this through. I think that's why he took the contract that he did. So tonight he did get an assist, which is good to see. He played a little bit more loose. I want to say if you watch the game, he just seemed to be not standing still in his own end, trying to overthink every single play, but he loosened up. He loosened up the grip on his stick. He played a little bit more open with trying to move the puck up the ice, and I think that was beneficial for him. I think it will benefit him long term as well, and it'll go down to what Berube was saying is forget about the mistakes. The mistakes are going to happen, and you're going to be criticized for them, especially in a market like Toronto. But it's about finding a way to play your game without worrying so much about what could happen. It's those what ifs that we talk about in everyday life, right? Outside of that, of course, you had Austin Matthews with 2 assists as well. He records his 300th career assist on Matthew Knies' first period goal. So congratulations to the captain, Austin Matthews, the GLOAT, as some would call him, on his 300th career assist. And Mitch Marner, another milestone for Mitchie. 1 goal, 1 assist. He becomes the fastest Maple Leafs player to 70 points in a season in franchise history, passing Doug Gilmour and Dave Andreychuk, who did it in 1993-94. So Marner, he's well on pace to that 100-point season, his first career 100-point season if he does reach that mark. He's in a contract year. We talked about it with David Alter at the beginning of this season. What do you do with Mitch Marner? Do you sign him mid-season? Do you sign him after this season? Do you sign him? What do you do with Mitch Marner? And we talked about if you're going to sign him mid-season, you do it. Or if you're going to sign him, you sign him prior to the season or you wait till after. I think we made a bad call in waiting till after because this guy's going to have a career year. And So long as he can get it done in the playoffs, I don't see why he wouldn't make tons of money, especially with the cap rising over the next 3 years. The Leafs are going to have room with that cap increase as well. Um, Outside of that, like I said, the second and third period were a little bit disappointing in terms of the overall play. The Leafs kind of sat back a little bit. They had their chances. They did obviously get a fourth goal as well. Um, but it was more going back to that old school Leafs play where we go up 3-0 and now it's time to sit back. It's no longer that 2-0 is the worst lead in hockey. 3-0 is the worst lead in hockey because of that mentality. You sit back, you start to play defense. All of a sudden, a team like Edmonton, who is, let's be honest, probably one of the teams coming out of the West, if not the team coming out of the West for the Stanley Cup, um, they're gonna capitalize on those opportunities, and they did, and they got right back into the game, and all of a sudden, it was a 1-goal game. Um, but regardless, the Leafs got it done on the back of Joseph Woll. We're going to get to that in just a second. Before we do, just a quick word from our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. This ain't the little itty bitty teeny tiny bowl. This is the Super Bowl. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Well, I know I'll be betting Saquon Barkley for at least a TD in the Super Bowl 59. Should be a good game. Hopefully the Chiefs don't take it once again. Three-peat's never fun to watch. We want to see somebody new. We would have loved to see the Buffalo Bills in there, even though I'm not a Buffalo Bills fan. I just would have loved to see Josh Allen finally get there and finally get his ring. But that's besides the point. We want to see the Leafs get their rings. We want to see the Leafs continue to win. We want to see the Leafs succeed. And one of those things that help the team succeed is goaltending. And tonight the Leafs had it. Tonight the Leafs had Joseph Woll back in net for his 28th start of the season, the most ever for Joseph Woll in a season during his pro career. And the kid stood on his head. If you haven't seen it, go back and check out the save he made on Corey Perry with under a minute left to go in the game. It was a game-saving save. Yes, the Leafs did have some help. Yes, the Leafs did have a goal called back. The Leafs did have a goal, they had a Oilers goal called back, I should say, with just over 2 minutes to play. Draisaitl had scored, but it was offside on the wing at the Leafs blue line. The goal was called off, and it was the 12th straight successful offside challenge that the Leafs have had since 2022. So obviously the Leafs are pretty good at it. I mean, I think you'd have to be with a video crew up there. You're looking at it. You don't want to take that 2-minute minor. Still, I'm not a huge fan of the video review. If you are, let me know. I'd love to have a conversation about it. I think, in sports, sometimes you have to be open to a little bit of human error. I do get the element of it can impact a game in a big way. Yes, it can. I think they've got to narrow the scope a little bit in terms of maybe you set a time limit. If it happened 2 minutes prior to the goal, then maybe it didn't impact the play enough. Same as goaltender interference. If the goalie's run over 5 minutes before the goal goes in. It's not considered goaltender interference. Um, that said, I think there's a lot of subjectivity in some of these calls. Um, Before we continue here, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you comment wherever it is, comment down below if you have anything you want to talk about before we close out this episode of post game notes with the Leafs over the Oilers. As for special teams, the Leafs, who have struggled on special teams throughout this season, especially on the power play, went 2 for 2 on the power play. Matthew Knies, Bobby McMahon with the 2 power play goals in the first period. They also went 2 for 2 on the PK, which has been struggling as of late. They began the season incredible on the PK. Since then, they've kind of had some momentary lapses in that. The consistency hasn't been as great as it was to start the year, but they got it done tonight against one of the toughest power play teams in the league. Obviously, with the likes of McDavid, Hyman in front of the net, Nugent Hopkins, Bouchard on the back end, you name it. This is a strong power play team in Edmonton, and the Leafs were able to get it done 2 for 2 on the PK. In net, Joseph Woll came up big. 45 saves on 48 shots. We mentioned that off the top of the show. He came up with that game-saving stop late in the game on Corey Perry, and he looked composed. And it'll be interesting to see today. Stolarz had a net to himself during the skate, and he's gonna be making his return at some point over the next couple weeks. Where this goes with Joseph Woll and Anthony Stolarz. This was the debate at the beginning of the year. Who's going to be the starting goalie? How's it going to turn out? Well, Stolarz stole the show with the numbers that he put up early on in the season. There was a few question marks around Woll's health and what he was going to be able to do. Now Woll's standing on his head. He's had a couple bumpy games, but every goaltender has, outside of maybe Connor Hellebuck, who continues to put up a Vezina type season. But are they going to go back to the 1A, 1B rotation? Are they going to focus more on getting Stolarz in there? Maybe they focus more on Woll with Stolarz still coming back from injury. It's going to be an interesting topic to break down over the next several weeks as we get back to the return of Anthony Stolarz. But in the meantime, Joseph Woll has done the job. He's got it done for this team. He's playing well, and this is the Joseph Woll. This is why the Leafs held on to him and moved on from the likes of Jack Campbell. They moved on from the likes of Frederick Anderson. They moved on from a number of goaltenders, Ilya Samsonov, because they knew what they had in Joseph Woll. So he gets it done. You got a milestone night for Mitch Marner. You got a big night for Matthews with 2 assists. You got the 30th goal this season for William Nylander. And they end a 3-game losing streak. No complaints from their side on the start time. It fits right into their schedule. You know, Edmonton, if you don't like the start time, take it up with the league head office. I don't think it has anything to do with who you're playing, but they had games all afternoon. You just happen to fit in that 5 p.m. Time slot, and the Leafs get it done 4-3. They will take on the Calgary Flames on Tuesday night as they look to make it 2 in a row on their West Coast swing. It's a long road swing for them now. It's a long road swing for them with the Four Nations Cup coming as well. Shout out as well to the captain who will be wearing the C for Team USA. Outside of that, folks, it's been a hell of a night. A good night to be a Leaf fan as you get to see some big saves, some big goals, and some big moments for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Other than that, big shout out to our sponsors over at No Name Hockey, BioSteel, Indie Alehouse, DraftKings, SeatGeek, and our family over at the Hockey Podcast Network. Thank you always for keeping it real. Hopefully we'll do some more of these over the next couple weeks. Until then, make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel, like this video, and comment so we can get some conversation going in these post-game segments, as I'd love to get the listener comments as well to see what you took away from tonight's game. Outside of that, we're looking for Matthews to get another tuck as he will tie Daryl Sittler on the all-time Leafs goals list with his next goal. So maybe that'll happen in Calgary on Tuesday. Until then, That's all you got. Go Leafs, go.